The Republic of Indonesia is the most globally influential nation that the average Westerner knows almost nothing about. Home to over 275 million people, it is the fourth most highly populated country in the world and the largest majority Muslim country on the planet. Indonesia's territory extends over 17,000 islands, spread out over 5,000 kilometers of ocean, upon which live over 300 distinct ethnic groups, among whom 6 different religions are worshipped. That the modern Indonesian Republic has managed to unify such a huge and diverse territory into a coherent nation-state is nothing short of astounding, which makes it all the more incredible that this is not the first time in history it has happened. Indeed, today we will not be discussing the modern nation of Indonesia. Instead, we will explore the origins, culture and history of a medieval Thessalocracy that in many ways laid the groundwork for what Indonesia is today. Join us as we go back to a time before the ascendancy of Islam in the Nusantara archipelago and dive into the story of the Majapahit, a Hindu-Buddhist empire that mastered the ocean. There's one thing that even becoming master of all the spices of the East won't help you with: hair loss. So let's mention something instead that does help. Our sponsor for this video, Keeps. 2 in 3 men lose hair to male pattern baldness before they are 35 years old, ranging from receding hairline to complete baldness. Once it starts happening, the only cure is prevention, so it's important to start hair loss treatment as soon as possible. With Keeps, this is easy. You can get an online consultation to set up a treatment plan with the help of a hair loss professional, tailored to your needs and circumstances. Without visiting a doctor or pharmacist, Keeps will deliver all the products and instructions you need to carry out your hair loss treatment. It's a discreet and simple method to prevent loss, stimulate growth, or improve the health of your hair. While hair loss can't always be prevented, it's worth a try if it's a concern for you. With over 1 million men treated and over 5,000 5-star reviews, Keeps is the best place to get started. Thanks to Keeps for sponsoring this video. Hair loss stops with Keeps. For a special offer to get started, go to keeps.com/kingsandgenerals or click the link in the description. That's keeps.com/kingsandgenerals. While the Majapahit was the largest and wealthiest empire to arise in Indonesia's pre-modern past, the building blocks of its vibrant culture, political policies, and immense economic prosperity all have their roots in the earlier history and natural geography of the island it was born on, the island of Java. From ancient times to the present day, Java has served as the beating heart of the vast Nusantara archipelago, and was the home island of most of Indonesia's most prominent historical states. Today, Java is the most highly populated island in the world, boasting a staggering population of over 150 million, which amounts to about 3 England's worth of people. The vast majority of Java's huge population is descended from ancient sailors who, around 3,500 years ago, crested upon Java's lush shores aboard sturdy catamarans and outrigger canoes. These voyagers were the Austronesians, the greatest seafarers ever to live. Their dispersal around the islands of Southeast Asia was just one stop in a multi-millennia ocean-bound migration that began in Taiwan around 5,000 years ago and ended on the islands of Rapa Nui and New Zealand around 800 years ago. The Austronesian seafarers who made Java the final step in their ocean odyssey would quickly master the lands and seas of their new home, and their descendants would build some of the wealthiest and most culturally sophisticated states in all of history. The reason why Java is so populous in the modern day, and was so disproportionately prominent throughout history, is because its climate and location make it the single most bountiful island on Earth. Over 18 active volcanoes dot Java's jungled landscape, spewing a steady stream of volcanic ash that, when settled into the soil, creates the most agriculturally productive land on the planet. On top of being an agrarian paradise, Java is the gateway to the Malacca Strait, a central nexus of a maritime Silk Road that since antiquity has connected China to the ancient civilizations of India, Persia, Arabia, and beyond. The long-distance trade that flowed through this strait was facilitated by seasonal monsoon winds that made the journey both speedy and predictable for sail-powered ships. The main exports that Java contributed to the maritime Silk Road were priceless spices like cloves, nutmeg, pepper, and mace, grown on the so-called Spice Islands of Maluku to the east. but typically distributed by the rulers of Java. As early as the 1st century AD, precious Indonesian spices were travelling as far afield as the Roman Empire. Overall, with access to the world's most productive farmland and valuable spices, and situated right at the bottleneck of the world's most lucrative trade route, it is no wonder that the kingdoms of Java were able to achieve a level of power and prestige that many of their contemporaries could only dream of. As the monsoon winds blew foreign traders onto Javanese shores, so too did they blow in foreign philosophies, sciences, political principles, and religions. While the Austronesians were originally an animist people, constant contact with the civilizations of India saw them slowly adopt Hinduism and Buddhism as their two main faiths. By the 8th century AD, Javanese rulers had begun to portray themselves as avatars of Hindu gods like Vishnu and Shiva, and style themselves as Devaraja, an ancient Sanskrit word meaning god-king. Grand monuments were consecrated to glorify their divinely mandated reigns, such as Borobudur, which to this day remains the largest Buddhist structure in the world, and Prambanan, the second largest Hindu temple in Southeast Asia. Despite this, neither Hinduism nor Buddhism fully displaced the pre-existing animist beliefs of the Austronesian peoples. In Java, new religions did not necessitate the abandoning of existing beliefs, but instead added more strands to an ever richer woven fabric of connections to the supernatural world. If India was the place from which the kings of Java received their spiritual legitimacy, then China was the place from where they received their political legitimacy. Throughout most of history, China was the sun around which all of Asia orbited, and even faraway Java felt the Middle Kingdom's glow. It was an ancient custom that foreign kingdoms wishing to do commerce with China had to swear nominal fealty to the Chinese emperor, something the rulers of Java played along with in order to gain access to Chinese riches. Throughout the medieval era, the political ties between China and Java ran deep, and successful rulers in Java often underlined their entitlement to rule by demonstrating China's approval. Or, in the case of today's titular Javanese empire, by successfully repudiating China's overlordship. Indeed, the story of the Majapahits' rise to power begins with the emperor of the Yuan dynasty, known better perhaps as the Great Khan of Khans. In the late 1280s AD, Kublai Khan, grandson of Chinggis, ruled over China as the emperor of the Yuan dynasty. As master of the Dragon Throne, Kublai was not just a Mongol Khan, but had inherited the political role of the Chinese emperors of old. Consequently, Kublai expected submission from all of the Celestial Kingdom's traditional tributary vassals, including those in Java. By the 13th century, the most powerful state on Java was the Kingdom of Singhasari. Under the rule of the mighty Buddhist warrior king Kertanegara, Singhasari's coastal borders had expanded rapidly throughout the 1200s, monopolizing control over the crucial waterways of the Malacca Strait. The Great Khan looked upon Singhasari's growing chokehold over trade with concern. Worried that the Javanese kingdom might grow so bold as to renounce Java's traditional status as tributary vassals of China, Kublai decided to remind King Kertanegara of his place, demanding he increase his yearly tribute to the Dragon Throne and send hostages from his royal family to the Yuan court. Not only did Kertanegara refuse to obey the Khan's orders, he mutilated the Mongol envoys who had been sent to convey them. Naturally, the Great Yuan had only one response to this great insult, and a primarily Chinese punitive expedition of 1,000 ships and 20,000 men was assembled to sail south to bring the indolent Kertanegara to heel. However, when this fleet arrived off the coast of Java 3 years later, in 1293, they were met with the rather anticlimactic news that King Kertanegara was already dead, overthrown and slain by his treacherous vassal Jayakatwang, the Prince of Kediri. However, this usurper's power was far from secure. Raden Wijaya, the son-in-law of the late Kertanegara, had organized a counter-revolution from his base of power in East Java, a stronghold called Majapahit. Raden Wijaya approached their Chinese leaders and promised that if they helped him defeat Jayakatwang, he would gladly submit before the Great Khan of Khans and pay a hefty yearly tribute to the Yuan court. Seeing this as an opportunity to place an obedient vassal on the Javanese throne, the Yuan generals ultimately accepted this offer. Joining together, the combined forces of Majapahit and Yuan crushed Jayakatwang in battle. However, barely had the Yuan forces had time to revel in their triumph, did Raden Wijaya turn on his allies, priming his warriors to take to the hills and jungles to put up an asymmetrical resistance against the Chinese interlopers. Having already suffered manpower losses from their fight with Jayaketwang and being stuck deep in an unfamiliar country, the Yuan commanders understood that a prolonged guerrilla war against their traitorous former ally would destroy them. Moreover, the monsoon winds would soon end, leaving them stranded for another 6 months if they did not leave soon. Weighing their options, the Yuan expedition made the wise decision to abandon Java and sail home. A sly schemer and veritable Littlefinger, Raden Wijaya had played friends and enemies alike to come out on top. After the Yuan fleet's departure, Raden Wijaya crowned himself the king of the newly established Majapahit state. A state that would, in the generations to come, expand further than any Javanese kingdom ever had. With that said, the Majapahit Empire got off to a precarious sophomore reign. After Raden Wijaya's death in 1309, the throne was inherited by his son Jayanagara. In traditional Javanese accounts, Jayanagara is ubiquitously maligned as a cruel and lecherous king who spent his days cuckolding his most important vassals. As such, his reign was mired with constant rebellions, and came to an ignominious end in 1328 when he was assassinated by his surgeon on the operating table. Since Jayanagara had no children upon his death, the throne passed to his sister Jayagataja. This queen proved far more capable than her brother, and managed to stabilize the Majapahit realm. She did not accomplish this alone, relying heavily on her prime minister Gajah Mada. Known as the Elephant General, Gajah Mada is perhaps the single most successful military commander in Indonesian history. What Belisarius was to the Byzantine Empire, Gajah Mada was to the Majapahit realm. Upon his appointment to office in 1336, Gajah Mada swore the famous Palapa Oath, in which he declared he would not taste spice until all the outer islands of the Nusantara archipelago were under Majapahit rule. Gajah Mada proved true to his word, and his conquests began when he led a Majapahit fleet to seize Bali in 1343. However, it wasn't until Queen Jayagataja abdicated the throne in favour of her son Hayam Wuruk that Gajah Mada really hit his stride. For the better part of the next decade, his vast fleets expanded Majapahit's influence tenfold, bringing countless states across the entirety of the Nusantara archipelago under Majapahit overlordship. By the time the invincible Elephant General died in 1364, the Majapahit Empire had reached its territorial zenith, having evolved into a seaborne power that exerted control over dozens of vassal kingdoms containing hundreds of ethnic groups, over thousands of islands, across 5,000 kilometers of ocean. It was one of the largest empires in the world at the time, and the largest empire in the history of pre-colonial Southeast Asia. However, it should be noted that the Majapahit Empire was not a centralized one. Only the islands of Java and Bali were controlled by officials directly appointed by the king, with the outlying territories consisting of client states ruled by vassal kings with high levels of internal autonomy. At its height, the Majapahit was the master of the rice terraces of Java, the shipping lanes of Malacca, and the spice islands of Maluku, making it an agricultural cornucopia, a thalassocratic juggernaut, and a serious contender for the richest empire in the world. The Majapahit's tendrils of commerce extended across the ocean, maintaining trade links with the South Indian Vijayanagara Empire and myriad nations across maritime Southeast Asia, such as Champa, Dai Viet, the Ayutthaya Empire, and the Khmer Empire. Even China was back in the system, with Sino-Javanese relations returning to a relatively stable tributary status quo after the Han Chinese threw off the Mongol Yuan emperors and established the native Ming dynasty. Of course, no empire can rely on economic power alone. To that end, the Majapahit was possessed of a mighty navy. Its main warship was the sleek yet sturdy Jong, an ocean-going transport vessel that could easily go toe-to-toe with any ship from Europe's Age of Exploration. The Majapahit were said to be capable of assembling a fleet of up to 400 Jongs, alongside innumerable thousands of smaller vessels. On top of this, the Majapahit were one of the few nations in the medieval world rich enough to field a full-time standing army. This force of professional troops numbered 30,000 strong, comprising foot soldiers, charioteers, and elephant riders. With contributions from their vassals across the Indonesian archipelago, the Majapahit could assemble up to 200,000 soldiers during a time when armies in Europe barely numbered above the low thousands. After gunpowder technology was introduced to Java during the Mongol invasion of 1293, the Majapahit proved to be quick adapters and soon became Southeast Asia's premier pioneers of firearm warfare. Perhaps the most iconic Javanese weapon is the chetbang, a type of bronze hand cannon employed by the invincible Gajah Mada during his conquests of the outer islands. During the golden reign of Hayam Wuruk, the extravagance of the Majapahit royal court knew no bounds. Even the king himself was said to participate in the dazzling performances of the age, taking to the stage in a golden mask to perform topang, a form of ritual dance known to take years to master. Per the Devaraja tradition, the rulers of Majapahit derived their right to rule by virtue of being the incarnations of God on earth, occupying a place in their kingdom that reflected the divine's place in the cosmos. Raden Wijaya, founder of the Majapahit dynasty, was posthumously depicted by his descendants as Harihara, an amalgamation of the deities Shiva and Vishnu. Throughout its golden years, the Majapahit realm was a global center of culture and learning. Its capital of Trowulan was a thriving cosmopolitan entrepot, with traders and dignitaries from China, Bengal, Gujarat, Persia and beyond all rubbing shoulders on its gilded streets. Even adventurers from faraway Europe, like the Franciscan friar Odoric of Pordenone, sprinkled the Majapahit domain with an extra dash of diversity. Religious life was vibrant, with Buddhism and Hinduism existing in full harmony with each other, both leaving their physical mark on the land. The Majapahits resided over a renaissance of religious architecture not seen since the days of Prambanan and Borobudur 3 centuries earlier, presiding over the construction of grand Hindu and Buddhist temples, known as Chandi, many of which, like the Grand Chandi Penataran, still enrich the Javanese landscape to this day. No empire lasts forever, and when the time for the Majapahits' decline inevitably came, it came in the form of melodious muezzin, proclaiming the call of prayer from the peaks of minarets. Much like Hinduism and Buddhism before it, Islam did not arrive in maritime Southeast Asia at the spear tip of a conquering army, but spread organically along the monsoon trade winds, introduced by merchants from Arabia, Persia, India and Muslim communities in China. Muslim traders had been present in the Nusantara archipelago for centuries, but it was only in the 14th century that their religion gained a substantial following among the local population. As Islam grew in prominence, it corroded the authority of the Majapahit kings, for their spiritual authority relied on being seen as the living incarnation of Hindu and Buddhist gods, an idea summarily rejected by the tenets of the Muslim faith, which asserted that no mortal man can be a god, and there is no god but the one God. In the year 1389, King Hayam Wuruk passed away after an impressive 49-year-long reign. Seeing the king's death as an opportunity, Parameswara, the Hindu Raja of a client city called Singhapura, repudiated his vassalage to the Majapahit throne. In response, Majapahit forces invaded Parameswara's lands and drove him from his city. Forced into exile, Parameswara fled north to the southern tip of the Malay Peninsula. There, according to traditional accounts, he converted to Islam, took on the Persian name of Sri Iskandar Shah, and established the Sultanate of Malacca. This fledgling sultanate found its footing with the help of Zheng He, the most venerated sailor in Chinese history. Between 1405 and 1433, the great eunuch admiral embarked upon 7 journeys across the sea at the head of a fleet of massive treasure ships, all of which passed through Java and the Malacca Strait. In 1411, Prince Parameswara supplicated himself before the Grand Admiral and joined him on the return journey to China to pay homage to the Yongle Emperor in Beijing. As it had been since ancient times, political relations with China were crucial in the balance of power in Southeast Asia. Throughout the early 15th century, Chinese protection allowed the Malacca Sultanate to flourish, while the Majapahit entered into a period of slow decline. Back in 1405, a succession crisis in the Majapahit royal court had led to a civil war that severely damaged the empire's grip on their overseas vassals. In the decades that followed, client rulers across Sumatra, Borneo and the Eastern Islands successfully broke away from Majapahit overlordship, all while the Malacca Sultanate quickly outpaced the Majapahit Empire as the primary trading hub in the region, while actively encouraging the spread of Islam throughout the region, which further eroded the power of the Hindu-Buddhist monarchy. However, it was not the Malacca Sultanate that brought about the final demise of the Majapahit. The Grand Admiral Zheng He was a devout Muslim, and throughout his 7 journeys, actively helped establish communities of Chinese, Arab and Malay Muslims on the northern coast of Java. By 1475, these Muslim communities had coalesced into the first Muslim state in Java, the Sultanate of Demak. By 1527, this Islamic Sultanate overran the enfeebled remnants of the Majapahit realm, forcing the last of its Hindu-Buddhist rulers to flee to Bali and putting out the final embers of an empire that had once dominated the entirety of maritime Southeast Asia. Although the Majapahit realm has long since been consigned to the graveyard of dead empires, its spirit still lives on in the hearts of the modern Indonesian people. In the 21st century, the Majapahit era looms large in Indonesia's history books, occupying a similar place in the national narrative as the Achaemenid Empire does in Iranian history or the Roman Empire does in Italian history. Moreover, the historical conquests of the Majapahit are considered to have set the precedent for the modern borders of the Republic of Indonesia. As the last holdout of native Hinduism in the Nusantara archipelago, the island of Bali styles itself as the cultural inheritor of the Majapahit legacy. However, even in the empire's home island of Java, which today is overwhelmingly Muslim, the locals still labor to preserve the cultural legacy of their Hindu-Buddhist ancestors. Today, the national motto of the Republic of Indonesia is Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, unity in diversity. Thus, it is easy to see why the modern Indonesian people cherish their Majapahit past, seeing the religiously tolerant, culturally diverse trading empire of old as a legacy to emulate, as Indonesia embraces its identity as a modern multicultural nation and its role as an economic leader on the world stage. More videos on Indonesian history are on the way. To ensure you don't miss them, make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.